Hello everybody and welcome to week 1. You can see I'm here at my desk where we're going to be going through the actual project together. In week 1, I'm going to be talking about the overview of the industry. I'm going to showcase a few different examples of different pipelines, what do different programs do, stuff of that nature. We're going to go through some amazing and cool examples just to illustrate what the VFX industry is all about. So I think it's let's do it. All right, let's do this. The VFX industry, the place where dreams and magic are forged. What is it, you would ask? Well, let me show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Doing VFX and CGI is somewhat like being a mad scientist doing countless experiments until something clicks and starts working. I always remember what Tesla said, I haven't failed, I just found 1,000 ways that don't work. Or maybe it was 10,000 ways, I don't remember. It's hard to explain what we do with a few words. It's basically a lot of cool and awesome people doing the things they love, from animation to sculpting to effects. They're all artistic processes that, when combined, generate something extraordinary. That is true for movies, games, or fully CGI motion pictures. But instead of me talking about it, let me rather show you how that looks like. So to start things off, let's check a few cool and awesome making of videos from big blockbuster films. We're gonna start with Pacific Rim here. And immediately you can see how much work went into this. I mean, replacing all the reflections, doing all the crowds, green screen, there's a lot of compositing that goes into a shot like this. A lot of development, a lot of different modeling and lighting passes. I mean, it's just a huge shot. Here you can see very clearly how the visual effects would look like when they're not rendered, when they're not shaded. And it's actually a pretty good representation on how everything looks like just when you're doing some viewport renders. And you can see here is a slice of when everything is finished, just tremendous amount of work. This is a good example when you see animation and rigging and also character effects. What are character effects? It's essentially these muscle thingies, the muscle systems and the muscles moving and also all the cloth that's happening on the wings. That's a lot of times that's all simulated versus just being animated. It's sometimes much easier to just sim it. Okay, I love Pacific Rim. It's the go-to movie when I really want to get that large scale feeling. And if something is not feeling right in my scene, I just watch this and see how everything is moving. And this is specifically if you have, big monsters and robots fighting, or just like a very huge explosion happening, or not just explosion, but also you saw they had a lot of water effects. So I would probably watch a movie like this to get my scale reference. And I love watching behind the scenes like this, where they actually animated some shots specifically for the behind the scenes or this making of. Awesome, good stuff. Oh, I jumped the gun a bit. Here is a very cool preview of how everything looked like in previous or layout. So they already had animation. They had some very basic effects coming. You can see from the big robot, and then you can see some very previous effects happening here, just so everybody could get on the same page to what is going to be happening. And then we transition from layout to final effects, I would assume. Probably not final, but close to final. You can see there's a lot more pieces. And then we transition here to final. These are final effects with all the smoke and everything. Now the render. Yes, amazing. Good stuff. Let's move forward. We have some Rogue One action happening. This part, see, this is the previous / layout, and that's how that looks usually. And then they transition into fully completed shot, which just feels like cheating, to be honest. Love this one, very cool. It's the scale. That's what I'm saying, that a lot of times I go watch these movies for reference when we're doing something this big, and you can probably spot a big resemblance with what we did here on our Rebelway cinematic for our explosions workshop. That was a big inspiration. This is on set. You can actually see they had some fire on set, some pyrotechnics, special effects happening on set. And then we do a swipe and everything is fake. This is another good example of how a scene is assembled. So just like Avengers assemble, this scene has to be assembled as well. This one specifically, you can see how much work goes into. And here they're even adding matte paintings, they're adding environments, renders, everything, effects, everything is combined here. And you can see how many passes they have to create something like this. And that's also what we're going to be looking at, creating all the different passes, how the compositing goes, what you would have to think of when you're in a look dev stage, when you're doing lighting, when you're doing rendering, like what is the process to get these different passes, so that then you can do stuff like this and you have full control later in comp. All right, so that's how the water looks like without anything else. And now with everything, you can see they add a bunch of glow on top to tie all the elements together. Cool. So here's another good example of effects and all the passes. And the explosions in this specific episode were quite amazing, and I used them for reference when I was shading my explosion as well. Plus I used the reference of these sparks. I think Star Wars usually has the best looking sparks, at least for me, because it is quite cool. So here you can see how the explosion looks like by itself before it gets covered by the truck. All right, cool stuff. There's going to be a few more explosions here. A few more. Pew, pew, pew. Another little breakdown. Very cool. Yes, more breakdowns. This is very nice to see that this shot was fully CG. So everything in here is CG, from the characters, from the environments, everything. And that, in a lot of cases, that would give you more control, so you don't have to shoot your actors on a green screen, and it's just easier to composite everything together. All right, a few more. The last two, this breakdown is pretty sweet. They are showcasing how the different departments work together. Again, how the assets are being assembled. You can just see how many bits and pieces goes into modeling something like that, and then it's like that in the background. It's pretty cool to see this, how the characters are done, how the lighting is done. We're going to be also looking at something like that later in the weeks, where we are going to have a gray sphere, and then we're going to be adding shaders on top with displacement and colors and everything. So it's very similar. We're going to be showcasing very similar workflows, but obviously here they're done by many different people, by many different departments, and just on a much bigger scale. In most cases, effects usually are broken down into different passes, so you wouldn't ever, when you're doing sand like this, you wouldn't do sand all in one. You would create a few different patches like they show here, and then combine everything in compositing, and that will give you the illusion of complexity. All right, you can check most of these yourself. Another good assembly, so you can see how it starts. This is pretty much, just a previs / layout, block out, and then everything gets assembled and becomes super complex. And then when lighting comes in and compositing and texturing and shading, you get a final shot, and it looks pretty awesome. This one was my favorite for a very long time, just because this movie feels like they made this movie just to create very cool effects. Especially water effects and explosions. For example, when you have water, you can see here, these are the different layers, the different passes that you create when you're doing that one shot. And that's something we're going to be taking a look at as well, on how to create not this big explosion, but how to go about it, how to think about it, how to be prepared when you have to do something like this, so you have at least a good understanding on how it would be made. All right, cool. So the different fields and visual effects. We have quite a few animators, modelers, sculptors, and all the other ones on the screen. All the departments have to work together in order for a movie or game to be finished. As a VFX artist, you have to be familiar with pretty much all of them, and then be specialized in one. So for instance, if you're doing effects, big boom boom explosions, you will have to understand what the department is doing before you and what you will have to deliver to the team in front of you. In the effects case, you will get animation from the animators, assets from the modelers and environment artists, and you will also have to work closely with the lighting, rendering, and compositing departments, since you will be delivering your effects to them. It's a forward and backwards process, and it might feel like you're in a sandwich, and you kinda are. A VFX sandwich, that is. Software and pipeline. No artist is really bound by their tools, but we do have a few that work better in some cases than others. For animation, we would use something like Maya. It's very common in the industry, and I suggest you look it up if that's your field of interest. For FX, Houdini is my weapon of choice. It gives you full control creating magical elements or realistic explosions, for the next Star Wars movie or the next big AAA video game. For motion graphics, or MoGraph, Cinema 4D is widely used. That's not to say you can't combine different tools together. A friend of mine, Twisted Polly here, is using both Cinema 4D and Houdini to create his beautiful MoGraph work. Nuke is used quite a lot in compositing. Compositing is the final process of combining all the CG renders and making the final output. For compositing, you can also use After Effects or Fusion. Unreal Engine and Unity are leading the game in real-time development. If you want to be a game developer or work in games, those are the tools for you. Blender is also a powerful piece of software. Ian Hubert keeps on proving that. ZBrush is an essential tool for character artists and sculptors. ZBrush is a very versatile tool and can be used for hard surface modeling and for organic creature sculpting, and it has many more tricks up its sleeve. And last but not least, 3ds Max, still quite used in the industry, especially for modeling and architectural visualizations. So that brings us to the pipeline. So we have our tools and our fields. Let's get into development. So we have 3 stages here: pre-production, production, and post-production. In pre-production is where the script is usually written. We have a few storyboards being made, budgets are being discussed, and the team assembles. Production is where the wheels start turning. On a movie, that would be the time the movie is being shot, the actual development or production of a movie. On a fully CG show, that is where all the departments would start working on previs, layout, modeling, concept art, asset creation, character development, animation, and so on and so on. Post-production, for a movie, that is where VFX and CG come into play. Also, sound design, editing, and color grading are done at this stage. Remember before when I was talking about the VFX sandwich? That is exactly how we work. Each department is layered with another one and we all work together as a team. All right, everybody, so that's it for the overview of the VFX industry. In the next few weeks, we're gonna go through the actual development of a CG/VFX shot. It's gonna be awesome. Stay tuned. See you soon.